approved, as we heard in the testimony. So, you know, the bills that were submitted to the town, in the neighborhood of another $30-ish thousand. We need to decide whether we're going to move forward with them and pay them.
I'd like to, since you're bringing that up, I'd like to ask if we consider not paying those bills at this time. I mean, I think that our township engineers should be given the opportunity to consider that. They were paid partially for the work that they did, and the work that they completed that maybe not being paid for might be something they could use in the future if any other recreation improvements are planned up there. And I think Mr. Mullins in the audience, maybe he cares to accept that, if that's something this committee would consider. Oh, before I think put Fran on the spot.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, let's see. I'm gonna make a motion that we don't pay those bills and we ask T&M to withdraw them at this point.
So withdraw the balance. How about the bills that we paid? Because I think we paid the bills as they came in small amounts. We didn't know what at the time the total volume was. So I'm one to say, you know, we clearly didn't, we got sworn testimony from the administrator that said they were never authorized. We never authorized them. So I don't feel we're accountable for any of the money that is still pending and the money that was already paid. So I'd like to rescind the money that we paid.
Well, we're not in agreement on that, so why don't you chime in, Rocco?
I'm at a dilemma, because if you look at the two testimonies between T&M and the administrator, they were contradictory. Someone committed perjury, they weren't the same. In my opinion, from the data that I saw, and I mean, I'm not defending T&M, I'm doing what I think is right. I saw a document from them that they sent to Donna that she clearly received, listing their bills of $58,000 and listing what those bills were gonna be for. She saw it. She got that. She didn't respond back by any means that we can check, maybe by text, but certainly not by email. But that, I saw that document, so she did get it, so that has me worried. I would love to save the township money, but I don't like screwing anyone who does work. So I believe T&M did the work, I believe they were instructed, and I believe they were instructed both by Donna and the mayor. That's my opinion. And I'm really at a loss here which way to go. I mean, if T&M wants to eat it, I have no objection to it, but I would not force them to do that. I have a letter here that was given to me by someone that I'd like to read into the record. And I think it was a quid pro quo. I was approached by someone who I'm not gonna name, that I should interview another person for township administrator that didn't put their name in, but was recommended by people from T&M. Then I got this document at the same meeting, so to me it seems like I vote for them and they'll pay the money back. I find that distasteful, but I still am a man of my words. They did the work. Here's the document. Township statement regarding the withdrawal of T&M invoices. I didn't make this up. As previously discussed, we have conducted a thorough review of the circumstances regarding the proposed athletic fields at the swim club. Although it seems pretty clear there are misconceptions regarding this matter via the township's administrator's office, we find that T&M Associates did nothing improper, received the direction to proceed with their work, and we believe they're working in the best interests of the township. We have served the township well for many years, T&M, and we feel that the invoices do so currently. We appreciate T&M's willingness to withdraw the attached invoices of $31,000 to lessen the financial impact to the township would suffer from the project's cancellation. Now look, guys, I stated, and I'm in a dilemma here, so I think T&M did the work, I think T&M was ordered, but I don't like any quid pro quos that I have to interview someone to get $31,000 back. That upsets me. But back to the point, I think they did the work, I think they deserve to be paid. That's my opinion. Whether we pay him, Eric pays him, Donna pays him, someone told him to do the work, and I believe They followed the procedure, and they should be paid. That's right. I have no idea where this came from. It was handed to me. Like, please don't talk from the audience.
So we have three different opinions. You want to table this to the next executive session? I mean, I think we should.
I think we should.
Table this till
Yeah, let's
everybody's here.
table it to the executive
Table
session.
it.
Fine.
Put that on the, next.
Any other?
And table
Yeah,
it.
I'll make a motion to
Executive
table it for
agenda.
executive session.
Second.
Wendy?
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Dr. Pascucci?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Okay, it's tabled.
Okay. What else?
The only thing I'll say is that our first aid squad celebrated their 50th year in service. We had a great turnout from residents and members, and it was a fun evening. And I'm proud to be a part of the first aid squad for so many years, and I'm also proud that we've continued these tradition of volunteering for EMS and fire in this town. It's a dying breed in the state, but our first aid squad has 64 members. We answer over 1,600 calls a year, and we don't get the members don't get paid a dime for it. And it was nice to see even residents from the town that came and showed their appreciation. So on that, I will open it to the public for public comment. Mr. Wall, come on up.
Good evening, how are you today? Terrence Wall, 170 LaKings Court. I have a question for Dr. Pascucci. If the premise upon which you design your censure and your concerns and thought process was fundamentally flawed, would you rescind your censure and make a motion for that? If
I would.
your premise was flawed?
What's your question?
Okay, my question is, you put forth that 2 plus million was included in the bills list over 3,500, right?
It was.
Okay, so you stand by that?
I stand by it.
Okay, you know you're wrong.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Do you want me to explain to you how the agenda works?
No, I don't. You get 3 minutes and that's it. Mr.
Okay, well, I'll explain to you our misogynist Dr. Pascucci using women's rude words for women.
I don't push
Terrence,
people like
all right,
you
Mr.
do,
Wall.
Terrence.
No, excuse me,
I don't push
excuse me.
people. This
No,
is
hold
not
on,
this
hold on,
place
hold on.
All right.
forum for this.
Here's the agenda, You have a consent agenda. You have a bills list over 3,500. Okay? That's under your consent agenda. Are you with me so far?
No, I'm
No,
not.
I'm going through the agenda, and I explain, because I think.
Please make your public
Yeah,
comment.
but just make your comment and then we'll respond.
All right, I'll direct this then to the
The
clerk's
committee.
office. There's a consent agenda. Or the attorney, there's a bills list over 3,500. Within that bills list, that is a specific bills list, there's, I think, one bill in it. And below that, separate and apart from the bills list that's over 3,500, within the body of the consent agenda are additional consent agenda items within the agenda. It's a public document. Several agenda items below the 3,500 bills list, which you have held so fast to, and frankly had the Star Ledger reporting on incorrectly. Below that, there's, I believe there's an educational consortium, which is the turf vendor, and I believe below that there's another separate item within the consent agenda. Your whole premise upon which you've thrust this process onto this mayor is flawed. From this meeting, I urge the committee and the attorney to give them some advice on what they're stating in public. Look at the agenda. I'll say it one more time quick. You have a consent agenda. You have a bills list over 3,500. That is its own resolution, which had one bill in it. It was around 5,400. Within the body of the rest of the consent agenda, you have separate items that have nothing to do with the bills list that you've been talking about for months. Within that consent agenda, towards the bottom, I didn't bring it because the meeting was going along great until you guys started talking. You'll see that there are separate resolution items having nothing to do with the bills list over 3,500. That's my point. That's the agenda. That's a public document. The premise upon which you have censured this individual was fraudulent. I'm talking as a lifelong resident, of this town, as a 3-term member of that township committee, someone who's involved in many different things over the years in public service. You have hijacked this man falsely, and the record will prove it out. And I certainly hope that there is an appropriate apology for you jacking up a man and his family and this municipality with your false allegations. It was wrong what you did. The proof will show when anybody looks at this agenda. You should be incredibly embarrassed and ashamed of yourself. You'll have an election, and whoever wants to vote, will vote with conscience. They'll vote for the independent candidates. They'll vote for whoever they wish to. But I have been watching this fraud, and it's wrong. Go look at the agenda. Come back to this next meeting and either state that it's true or not true. The reason I mentioned your comments about women, I thought they were wrong. You're going to a fundraiser for the lead investigator in the charade, and you're being investigated with the library at the State Attorney General's office. And this is the crew who is censuring a man who simply likes providing for children's sports. As a lifelong resident of this town, you're embarrassing. And you should all resign, quite frankly.
What you said is
It's
false.
wrong what you are.
Yeah, you're done.
No,
2 minutes is
no,
up.
no, may I respond to
You
Mr.
can.
May? You are completely wrong. The agenda that I received had 2 agenda items for lights and for the field, totaling 2.1, on the bills payable over $3,500. That's the truth, and I have a copy which I didn't bring today. That's the one that I have. It was nowhere else on the agenda, Terrence. You are wrong. Then these committeemen called the lawyer, and he can testify, and we said, this is BS. You can't have these 2.1 million on bills payable. The project was done. It was ready to go. It was only on that one place. There was nowhere else on the agenda, no other resolution till we called, and we said this is unacceptable. That's the problem. I have that agenda, and I can have the clerk produce it to anyone and put it online. The agenda that we received, that's the only place. So you're incorrect,
The public
Terrence.
agenda.
Not
I will
public.
clarify, and this is at the invitation of Committeeman Pascucci and not the public comment. There are draft iterations of agendas that the committee may be speaking to. So Mr. Wall, when you reference the agenda and you reference my legal advice regarding agendas, you have a public agenda. You have access to public documents, whether they were posted on the website or whether they were opened. The committee has access to draft documents that you may not have access to, and those are the documents that Committeeman Pascucci may in fact be referencing.
And we instituted the change, not the mayor. We did. This would have went through at that meeting if we didn't notice the irregularities. That's the truth, Terrence. So I'm not apologizing. And whenever I'm misogynistic, I don't know why I'm misogynistic.
When you reference the administrator should have strong enough gonads to attend the meeting or not attend the meeting. Yes.
Gonads, that was a compliment, because I'm not sexual. Whether it's testicles or ovaries, it's gonads.
I have no other questions.
And hopefully you can push
Thank you very
me
much.
like you pushed Gary Almeyer.
All right, next.
Thank you very much.
Prakash, go ahead.
Prakash Santana, 18 Barbera Drive. Dr. Pascucci, I applaud you for the courage to censure a fellow committeeman because it takes a lot of courage. But I want to tell you, regardless of what anyone else says, having followed this very closely, you did the right thing. No one's above the law. Let's make it very clear. And I've said this many times, I'm sure you agree with this, the truest test of character is what one does when no one's watching. And you did the right thing by passing this resolution. Thank you.
Ralph Blumenthal, 41 Standing Brook Road. I'd like to welcome Mr. Radford to Homedale. I look forward to working with you. I look forward to the opportunity to meet with you at whatever lunch or whatever you folks set up. Just one question, when do you start?
November 12th.
November 12th.
Armistice
Thank
Day.
you. Thank you, and I look forward to meeting you and talking.
No, Ralph, just talk to us, Ralph.
Okay. Just one quick question for Rocco to clarification with regard to the EMS and the firehouse. Yeah, I guess the emergency management people are there, and that has to be taken into account.
Mike.
Okay.
That's his phone.
There you go.
His name is Ralph.
I wasn't quite clear in what you said, that is there agreement about the EMS building and creating a new, not for the management, but for first aid people? Is there agreement on the first aid building on the, going into the parking lot?
You mean an agreement that the first aid people want it?
And where it will be?
The first aid people would like a new building, of course. They still haven't given their okay to the plans we initially have out there. So they, of course, would like it.
Okay, so we are still talking about two buildings.
We're talking about either a new first aid building with reconditioning the current fire and first aid building, or a completely new firehouse somewhere on F&F in that vicinity. That's my opinion where we are today, and the whole township committee will discuss it next time when they get copies of the drawings and the.
Regardless, we're talking two buildings. Or no,
No.
is there one option?
We're gonna get either a new first aid building, just reconditioning the fire first aid building.
Right.
Making one of the bays bigger, giving them sleeping
Right.
rooms, a big kitchen.
Or a total.
Totally
one
new
building,
firehouse, first aid doesn't get
leaving
it.
the existing building
They
alone.
might get some tune-ups in the building, but they stay where they are.
Okay, thank you for the
Confusing
clarification.
for me too, Ralph.
Mr. Sokol?
By the way, the Astros are winning 2-1. I usually try not to delve into things I don't know a whole lot about, but I'm going to give it a
I'm
shot
sorry,
right now.
your name, sorry,
Mike,
Mike,
just
your
say your
name,
name and-
Mike
address.
Sokol, 6 Wild Hedge Lane. Rocco, question for you about locations. Obviously, for someone who lives in the southern portion of the town, this is very sensitive about where the fire station would be. And one of the beauties of the old fire station was it was essentially in precinct 5, which is, you know, not only the largest precinct in town, but larger by 50%. It's really a major center of the population of Homedale. So what I was curious about is, you know, obviously, we're hamstruck, you know, as to locations based on where we can do it, but how much work have we done towards looking along the 520 corridor, the Newman Springs Road corridor, for the possibility of a fire station or something, you know, like Homedale Road off that area? It's just,
Nothing right now, Mike, because our goal was because of cost. It's gonna cost about $5 million, whichever way we're going.
Right.
Is that we can't have two firehouses right now. We want a centrally located firehouse. We have dedicated volunteers. But if that ever falls through, we would have to have at least a partially paid system where they can sleep. So our goal, which we all agreed to up here and made everyone agree, is a centrally located firehouse that could reach the south, which is pretty big coverage. Most of the people, I believe, live in the north, but we figured F&F or Crawford's Corner Road can reach both of them. And that's why we're doing a centrally located. I would love to have two, Mike. I just can't see us affording it.
so I thought at one point we were talking about kind of a centralized, like you're saying, but we were talking about a satellite station where equipment would exist closer to the southern part of town, and, you know, the staffing would come to, so that concept is
We
no longer.
never fully explored that, though. One thing that we've been going with for a while from the fire study is centrally located firehouse. One firehouse that could serve the north and the south. And we would we'd hopefully have enough volunteers to staff it. If not, we would have to look elsewhere. But we feel we need a centrally located one. I would love to have that one back, but we don't have it.
Yeah, so I mean, the only thing I would kind of recommend to the body is, this is an issue that I truly believe is one of those issues you could really go to the voters and kind of explain, if we needed to raise additional money through a bond, or we needed another way of a revenue source to create two firehouses. We have an 18 square mile area. It's one of the reasons why we have a fairly large police department for a town of this size. So it's just a geographical problem. And I think if we took, you know, it's one of those examples, I hate using the term political courage because that's ridiculous, but the point is, I would encourage the members of this body to really, let's go out to the community, let's talk about it, let's see if we can get some public support for two fire stations, because the reality is, it's probably the best solution for a town of this size.
Thank you, Mike.
You bet.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, Donna?
Hi, Donna Carinante, 13 Hayward Hills Drive. For clarification, when I come up here and I address everyone, I come up and address you as a town resident who has raised my 2 young sons, who are adults now, through the Homedale school system. I've been a resident for 22 years. I've also worked within the Republican Party for the last 15 years, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And just to address Mr. Yanello's comment that he made back in July, when I come up here, I'm speaking on behalf of my family. Yes, I am Tom Fratelli's sister, but I'm
Thank you for
speaking-
acknowledging that.
Yeah, no, anytime. I appreciate
You didn't acknowledge it all.
All right, Donna, just,
No,
Donna,
I-
just, Donna, just
I-
stay here.
I honestly
No, no,
didn't think it was
I understand.
necessary.
Just focus here.
I honestly
Focus
didn't
here.
think it was necessary.
Okay.
Because when I come up here, I address my concerns. And I would just like to reiterate something Terrence Wall said just a few moments ago. This is a political witch hunt. And I would just like to remind everyone of a conversation I brought to everybody's attention, a conversation that I had with Mr. Nicholas in a public venue, where you said right after, actually it was before the election, if you lost the primary, you would do everything in your power to jeopardize anything Mayor Hines put in front. And ever since that day, that's all I've witnessed from the 3 of you. And while I understand you have this holier-than-thou complex on some of these issues, what I've seen happening is beyond insulting to the people in this town. What I'm seeing you do to Mayor Hines is insulting for a man that's worked tirelessly. Now, you all supported a turf field. Mr. Nicholas, you supported a turf field. Dr. Pascucci, you spoke on behalf of the American Board of Pediatrics, saying that there were no health concerns and you supported a turf field. You had wanted it maybe looked at more so at Cross Farms. So while there may be disagreements, and I understand consent agenda and things along those terms, at the end of the day, when are we going to put the children of Homedale first, make these recommendations and these recreational improvements that are so desperately needed? My 2 sons, my 24-year-old son is still nursing an injury that he suffered on one of the fields. We need additional fields for the girls and the boys, whether it's lacrosse, whether it's field hockey, whether it's football, whether it's soccer. We need you guys to come together and make decisions instead of battling each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay Yanello, 18 Landwood Drive. Mr. Fratelli, I hate to disagree with you, and you're my sister, but this is not a political witch hunt. Mr. Nicholas and I, as I said before, have had some significant disagreements over the past few years. In fact, we didn't speak for 9 months. I was so mad at him, and we've barely spoken since. What this is are citizens, most of which don't really care much about politics, and for a large part, don't really care if we have a turf field or not. They just want the process done right. And time again, when our mayor has wanted to locate a turf field, the process was not done right. It's not a witch hunt. You see it with the hundreds of signs for the independent candidates on people's lawns. You saw it at their fundraiser at Fox Hollow, the passion, and the significant sum of money that they raised. The idea that this is a political witch hunt is a sham. Anyone with an objective mind that looks at what happened knows exactly what happened. Mr. Pascucci, that draft agenda, you listening?
Yeah.
That draft agenda, can you please put that on the website so those still in denial at what happened, and there's obviously a lot in the room tonight, can see that. And apparently there's an email or some discussion about Mr. Hines wanting the girls softball to pay for, the HYA or something to pay for their improvements at Cross Farm Park. Can we put that online while he's trying to raise millions for the soccer fields that benefit the HYSA, which had revenues of over $800,000 last year? And while I'm on that topic, it was brought up that I didn't really believe what I was saying about the private soccer club. Let me tell you something. I have many better things to do than to come up here and mention one syllable about what I don't believe.
I see their financial statements, cash on hand, 400,000+, revenues every year, 800,000. If someone from the finance committee would like to walk me through their quarterly numbers and show why that cash doesn't mean anything, and it truly isn't there, I'd love to. But there's a lot of money rolling around this private club. There's a lot of inconsistencies with people saying it's for the children when it doesn't seem to always be for the children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lawyer, can I ask a question? Sure. Since it was a draft agenda, can it be made public?
It's up to, if the committee wants to waive privilege on that and to provide that document.
So, well, how would we do that?
I mean, you could give me a direction here tonight that that would be the case. And I can't say I could speak to past Oprahs on that specific document, but I believe, based upon the discussion and the colloquy earlier, that you're referencing a draft iteration of the agenda.
The one before April 9th that we received a couple days before the meeting.
Correct.
I have a copy, and I would recommend that we do make it public if the majority of the township agrees. I make a motion that we release it.
Okay.
We have to take roll call.
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Catali?
I'm going to abstain. I don't know what the purpose is.
Dr. Pascucci?
Yes, because I'm being said I'm a liar.
Mr. Nicholas?
Yes. All right, who's, next? Yes.
Ron Emma, 32 Ladwood Drive. I'd like to applaud you, Dr. Pascucci, for your diligence with the firehouse and all your efforts to try to secure that. But I'm a little confused. We were waiting for the plans to be made public for the Crawford's Corner building, and now all of a sudden, we're back to F&F, which I happen to believe is the right place to put it. But where did this come? I thought it was Crawford's Corner and EMS across the street. Now we're all back to square one. This is what happens, we're losing traction again. So I'd like you to respond. I have one other point. We're past the deadline for the new fire truck. 2 meetings ago, there was a deadline that a fire truck was going to be ordered. I'd like to know what the status of that procurement process is.
Let me do my part, and I'll ask the administrator and the
Hold on, did you have anything else, Ron?
Yes. One other thing. I don't think anyone in town would be against the concept of transparency. So I applaud you, Dr. Pascucci, for having the bravery to put forth that censure. Everyone, this whole process of the consent agenda and the 2.1 million and the swing club debacle, no one is complaining, or to the best of my knowledge, no one is against the concept of turf fields. What people are against is the backhandedness, the secrecy, and this whole slipping under the radar, 2.1 million for a swim club. That's a fact. Put it out there, say you want a turf field, you want to put it here, you want to put it there, let the people know. But to think this is a political witch hunt when really all we're asking for is transparency. I don't think anyone in this town would disagree that transparency is a bad thing.
And I'll answer my part the best I can. This meeting, we were supposed to discuss amongst us the renovation of the fire and first aid building and the building of the new first aid building at the Crawford's Corner campus. It was not supposed to be leaked to anyone. Someone leaked it to the fire department. And they got very upset and sent a letter to me personally saying they're not going to do it. It wasn't signed, it was stamped. They wanted to put it, and I'm not throwing Mr. Pesh under the bus because I do like his property maybe for the firehouse, but it's off the table. They wanted to put it there.
Where is the Pesh property?
It's across from Crawford's Corner Road, aside of the high school by Falcon Ridge Development. There used to be a Korean church there. Not a bad piece of property. However, we would have to buy it or rent it, which would be another expense. So this was supposed to be secret. I don't know who did it. Someone leaked it to them. So now they got up in arms. I would like to make this as smooth as possible. I'm not a big bully like everyone thinks I am. I would like to get everyone to agree on this. So then all of a sudden that happened, so we had to look further. Ash pulled his property off. He doesn't want to sell it or buy it, is the last that I understand. So we're back to F&F. So we're going to have to decide, are we going to renovate the building, tell the fire department this is what you get? There are some problems with it, and we'll go over them in detail when we all discuss it. I personally think F&F is the best site.
It's a blank canvas. It's perfect.
And if we can get the corner, which would be a little bit better, and we're working on that, that might make things a little easier. So I'm upset as everyone, but we will discuss it. If we can get it on the agenda, and I'm sure the mayor will, we'll discuss it and hopefully make a decision by the next meeting. We have the drawing, we just need the numbers.
Thank you for your diligence.
You're welcome.
Where are we with has someone called the fire truck dealer and said, I want to order a fire truck? The money's there. We're past the deadline.
Well, I could inform you procedurally that the bond amendment that's required to.
That was 2 meetings ago, the bond.
Correct,
We'll have
and
the money.
and
I'm
bond
talking
cap,
about the
excuse me, can I,
the
if you wanna ask a question, please give me the opportunity to answer. The bond council reviewed it, the public hearing was scheduled for the meeting 2 Tuesdays ago, that was canceled. On the advice of bond council, we had to reintroduce the ordinance, so it was reintroduced tonight, public hearing scheduled for the next meeting in November. After that's finally adopted, the committee can then move ahead with any procurements under that resolution.
So there's been no action whatsoever as
Can't.
far as specking out a truck?
Well,
Hello, what kind of truck?
to be honest, the fire department, their committee, had a conference call with Pierce today.
Great.
Earlier today to,
Past the
start
deadline, but
specking
great.
it. Yeah.
So they have a spec and they have a truck they want, and this is the one that.
Yes. They're all
Okay.
custom made, they're specking out, custom for home dell. And,
What's the timeline on that?
Don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, there's no right answer to give, we couldn't give you, even begin to guess on the exact date there'll be a delivery, but you'll know.
I would hope that we could nail that down.
It's not a used truck.
It's a new truck.
The new truck. That's all.
This is a new vehicle, 800,000 from that $5 million bond we took out, and they can't order obviously until the bond's passed, but they are. I did push them to move ahead and get.
And this is the Pierce, right?
Yes,
Pierce is.
Top of the line, got it. Very good.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so who's next? Let's go Mr. Wood.
Hi, Tom Wood, 20 Heather Hill Way, Homedale. So I have a question. Earlier today, you approved the appointment of a new deputy municipal clerk.
Yes.
Her name is Carrie Ann Callery. And our HR director is Denise Callery. Do we know if these two people are related?
It is her stepdaughter.
Okay. And Denise Callery is the woman who we suspended because of allegations regarding nepotism in hiring in the township, is that correct? So yes, it's a public fact.
This isn't
okay?
a deposition,
Okay,
you can make a
fine,
public
okay,
comment.
fine, I'm making a public comment. So, I would question whether there were any potential conflicts of interest with respect to the HR director of the township hiring her stepdaughter.
Well, the HR director doesn't hire anybody.
All right.
But it was vetted through our labor attorney. The subject you're talking